Hello, and welcome to Comics Obscurity. This is your host, Jack Talk Ty. And today, guys, we're going to talk about good guys gone bad. How some of our greatest, most upstanding heroes have sometimes turned to the dark side. And as a lot of you guys know right now, Captain America is in the midst of this thing called Secret Empire. It's been revealed that all this time, the Captain America we know has secretly been a Hydra agent. History was changed. The Red Skull used the cosmic cube and changed history so that Captain America grew up in Hydra. And they're trying to say that he has really always been this way. And the good Cap that we know, that we grew up reading about, was because the Allies lost World War II and the Nazis won in real life, in the real actual timeline of the Marvel Universe, and that the Allies got their hands on a cosmic cube back in the 40s and changed the timeline so that instead Captain America is the guy we knew. He got frozen in ice and blah, blah, blah. It's a great storyline. I mean, you guys got to check it out. But we're going to talk about some other guys who have also made that turn to the dark side. The first one here we're going to get into is Kid Miracle Man. These guys, Johnny Bates, he was the Kid Miracle. He's the guy in the yellow you see there, and he's with Miracle Man and Young Miracle Man there. And Johnny Bates was basically the junior Miracle Man. He was basically the British version of Captain Marvel Jr., because they basically just stole the concept of Captain Marvel and made this character. And they later got sued and had to cease and desist and all of that. But as the years go by, he remains in his Kid Miracle Man body, which doesn't really age. It ages, I guess, slowly, because he is somewhat of an adult when we see him in the 80s when Mike Moran reconnects with him. And he's gone totally insane. He at one point he gets, as a little boy, when he's in his little boy form, he gets beaten and apparently sodomized by some kids in a bathroom. These are very brutal, very raw comics I'm talking about, guys. And this triggers him to transform back into Kid Miracle Man, and he ends up completely destroying London. He just destroys it. He rips the skin off people at the speed of light. He takes the arms and legs off people. He kills babies, pets, parents, grandparents. He kills them all until Miracle Man has to step in and shut it down. If you guys have never read Alan Moore's 80s revamp of Miracle Man, I strongly suggest you do, because that single comic changed It shifted, I should say, the way comics were presented. Comics suddenly became more brutal and more kind of enmeshed in reality, I guess you want to say. Our next guy, this was not a popular story among a lot of you. This is Hal Jordan, Green Lantern. A group, I forget the name of the group, and someone in the comments will remind me of their name, but a group of Hal Jordan fans boycotted, and Heat was their name, and they fought so strong and so hard that DC eventually caved in and gave Hal back to us. Hal was the greatest Green Lantern of them all. An alien crash landed on Earth, and an alien Green Lantern, part of the Green Lantern Corps, and he sent his ring out to seek a suitable replacement, and we ended up with Hal. And Hal was a loyal guy, even though the Guardians gave him hell over the years. The Guardians were uncompromising, they were unbending, and Hal just had to follow orders like a good soldier until one day his home city was destroyed as a part of the massive return of the Supermen, or reign of the Supermen storyline. If some of you guys remember when Superman was killed back in the early 90s, and we had that long storyline dealing with his death and the ramifications of it. Part of that was this guy, Hank Henshaw, destroyed Coast City, the cyborg Superman. This drove Hal Jordan insane, okay? Literally. He killed all of the Green Lantern Corps and took their rings. And he confronted the Guardians and basically obliterated them. He truly did. He shut everything on the planet Oa. He shut it down because he was just mad with power. And he absorbed all the power of the central power battery, and he became the character known as Parallax, an ultimate powerful power, one of the more powerful guys in the DC universe. And it was just Hal Jordan, a little bit off his rocker, drunk with power. He tried to retcon the entire universe at one point, and the heroes shut him down. And, around this time, Kyle Rayner had taken over as Green Lantern, which I loved that whole story. I loved Hal going crazy. I loved Kyle coming in, Kyle Rayner. What I loved about it was it came out of the blue for me, because I was not a Green Lantern fan. I wasn't reading the book. So when that started happening, I started reading the book. And it blew my mind that they had this guy killing people and just not caring anymore. It was just a great, great, daring thing for DC to do. And I know you guys are gonna boo me, some of you are at least. I hate that they brought him back. They shouldn't have brought Barry Allen back either, but we'll get into that in the future. One thing I do want to mention is a guy named Lord Malvolio. Now, we call this series Comics Obscurity, and right now we're going to live up to the obscurity part because a lot of you don't know who Lord Malvolio is. This was something that was snuck into the back of a DC Action Comics, when Action Comics was an anthology series with a bunch of stories in it I think it was a weekly release at this point. And they snuck this in the Green Lantern story. Green Lantern encounters a guy from the 18th century, if I'm not mistaken, who had a Green Lantern ring, who had left the planet and it's established himself as like a powerful bad guy. He abused the power of the ring, and he was a few hundred years old. And it was a forgettable story, but the notable thing in that story, as you see here in this panel, at one point he switches rings with Hal. And the ring that he gives Hal has no idea his ring has been switched. The ring that Hal has now is tainted with evil. As you see here in this panel, Malvolio is gloating. Oh, he has my evil ring, and now my plan is in motion. Now, the way I look at this, and this was quickly forgotten about, and this was put in the book a short while before the whole thing with Hal and Coast City and Hal going mad. That looks to me like DC was kind of hedging their bet a little bit. They put that in there as a backup. In case this really goes bad, we can weasel out of this by saying Hal didn't really go insane. Hal had a cursed ring. You know, nothing has since been done with Lord Malvolio. He's never been seen again. Hopefully some good writer will pick up on that and do it, but it's been a few decades now. But still, it's of note that Lord Malvolio exists, and he exchanged rings with Hal, and shortly after, Hal went crazy. Our final guy here, and oh God help me, how many of you remember teen Tony Stark? One thing I like here, you see here, this is Tony's 80s look. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but that's a cool little Jerry curl Tony apparently has there in that picture. But Tony's always had his problems. He drinks. He's been known to be a bit arrogant, you know. And this thing came along called The Crossing, and the whole point of The Crossing was to change and update and make the Avengers cool and hip and edgy. So they made the Wasp look horrible. They completely redesigned Janet Van Dyne and made her look just awful. But they did a bunch of crazy stuff, and one of the things they did was they revealed us that Tony was evil. Tony had been evil all this time, we just didn't know it. He was a pawn of Kang the Conqueror. Tony even killed a couple of, minor Avengers, but we see Tony Stark, Iron Man, blatantly killing people to keep his secret. And basically, long story short, the Avengers, in a ridiculous idea, said, hey, we got to stop Tony, so let's go back in time and get his young self and bring him forward, because the teenage Tony Stark is the only person in the world that can stop him. I don't know the logic behind that, but that's what they did. And there was a fight, and our Tony Stark, the old guy, was killed. And the teen Tony Stark took his place. And I will give him this. Teen Tony had, in my opinion, because some of you are going to disagree, he had some great armor. I really love that. I like the way his gauntlets had that look. It just was cool looking armor. I really dug Teen Tony's armor. But the book suddenly became a teenager, going to school and dealing with Jarvis as kind of his father figure. Franklin Richards, bless his little heart, fixed all of that when he brought the guys back from the Heroes Reborn universe. He made Tony back to what he was. And that's been Comics Obscurity. We're going to be back soon with a whole new episode, and we're going to hopefully keep you entertained. Leave us a comment below and let me know what you guys think. And for someone, please tell me what HEAT stands for. I really want to know. I'm not going to Google it myself. I want one of you viewers to tell me what it means. We will see you again next time. Take care.